I choose her. No hesitation, no pause, no room for doubt. The words landed like they belonged there, like they had always been waiting to be said. Across the hall, Illyra Ven didn't move. She stood exactly where she had been standing moments before, her fingers curled gently around her son's small hand, as if the world hadn't just shifted beneath her feet. Eryx looked up at her, confused. Too young to understand why the room had gone so quiet. Too young to understand why his father wasn't looking at them. Kaelin stood at the center of the estate hall, surrounded by power, by expectation, by a past he had never truly left behind. And beside him, Veolyra, untouched by time, unshaken by absence, as if she had never left, as if she had always belonged there. The pack watched, silent, because moments like this didn't invite reaction. They demanded witness. Illyra's gaze didn't immediately go to her husband. It went to the space between them, the distance, the answer she had already known, but had never forced herself to accept. Then, slowly, she looked at him, not searching, not pleading, just seeing. Kaelin didn't look away, but he didn't soften either. There was no regret in his expression, no conflict, only certainty. And that was what broke something she couldn't name. Not loudly, not visibly, but completely. Eryx shifted closer to her side, his fingers tightening around hers. "Mother," he whispered. The word grounded her, pulled her back from the edge of something she refused to fall into. Illyra inhaled slowly. Once, carefully. Then she nodded. Not to the room, not to the pack, to herself. Because there was nothing left to argue, nothing left to misunderstand. He had made his choice. And for the first time, she didn't try to change it. She turned. Not abruptly, not dramatically. Just enough. Enough to step out of the moment that no longer belonged to her. Eryx followed without question, because he always did. And behind them, the hall remained filled with power, with voices that would soon return, with a decision that would echo long after the moment passed. But Illyra didn't look back, because some endings don't need closure. They just need silence. Illyra had always known she wasn't his first choice. That truth had been clear long before vows were spoken, long before she stood beside Kaelin as his Omega, as his wife. Their marriage had never been about love. It had been strategy, an alliance between packs, stability over sentiment. And she had accepted it, because acceptance was easier than wanting more. At least, that's what she told herself. In the early days, Kaelin had been distant but fair. He fulfilled his role, provided what was expected, maintained order with the same quiet control he showed in everything. He never promised her anything beyond that. And yet, there were moments, small ones, the kind no one else would notice. A lingering glance when she spoke, a brief pause before leaving a room, the rare, quiet evenings when he stayed longer than necessary, moments that meant nothing, until they didn't, until she started to believe they might mean something more. Eryx had changed things too, not for Kaelin, but for her. Their son filled the silence Kaelin left behind, filled the emptiness of a home that often felt too large for just two people pretending it was enough. Illyra built her world around that, around soft routines and quiet stability, around the hope that time might shift something. That one day, Kaelin would look at her and see more than obligation. And sometimes, when his gaze lingered just a second too long, she thought he was starting to. That had been her mistake. Not loving him, not staring, but believing that something unspoken could grow into something real, when his heart had already been given away and never taken back. Veolyra didn't arrive like a storm. She didn't need to. There was no announcement, no formal return. And yet, everything shifted the moment she stepped back into the estate. Illyra noticed it immediately, not in the obvious ways. Not at first. It was subtle. The way conversations paused when her name was mentioned. The way the pack straightened when she entered a room. The way Kalen changed. He didn't rush to her, didn't abandon his duties, but something in him sharpened, focused, like a part of him that had been dormant had suddenly come alive again. Illyra saw it the first time they stood in the same space. Veolyra smiled, soft, familiar, as if no time had passed between them. And Kalen. He looked at her differently. Not like a king assessing a return. Not like an alpha maintaining control. But like a man remembering something he had never truly let go of. Illyra stood across the room, Eric's at her side. Unnoticed. Again. The realization didn't come all at once. It settled slowly, piece by piece. In the way Kalen's attention lingered just a little longer. In the way his silence around Illyra grew heavier, more distant. In the way Veolyra moved through the estate like she already knew where she belonged. The whispers started soon after. Quiet at first. Careful. She was always temporary. He never chose her. Illyra heard every word. She didn't react. Didn't correct them. Because denying it wouldn't change anything. And deep down, she already knew. Veolyra hadn't taken something from her. She had simply returned to claim what had never been fully let go. And Kalen. He didn't stop her. Didn't create distance. Didn't choose restraint. He allowed it. Every moment. Every glance. Every step closer. Until there was nothing left to misunderstand. Illyra stood in the same home she had built her life in and realized she no longer had a place in it. It didn't happen all at once. There was no single moment where everything shattered. No confrontation. No raised voices. Just a quiet unraveling. Slow. Steady. Illyra began to notice the absences more than the presence. Kalen stopped lingering. Stopped pausing. Stopped looking at her in those brief, uncertain ways that had once given her hope. Now, there was nothing. Not coldness. Not cruelty. Just distance. Clean. Final. Like a door that had been left open just long enough for her to believe she could step through. Before it quietly closed. Veolyra didn't push her out. She didn't need to. Her presence alone was enough. She fit into spaces Illyra had once filled, spoke in tones Kalen responded to without effort, moved beside him with a familiarity that made everything else feel misplaced. Natural. Effortless. Right. Illyra watched it happen without interruption. Without protest. Because fighting something like that would only make it worse. Eric's became her anchor. Her reason to stay steady when everything else felt like it was shifting beyond her control. She focused on him. On his laughter. On his small hands reaching for hers. On the quiet moments that still felt real. But even that wasn't enough to ignore the truth anymore. She wasn't being replaced. She already had been. And she had stayed. Too long. Hoping for something that was never going to change. That realization didn't break her. It settled. Deep. Heavy. Final. Like something clicking into place. Illyra stood in the hallway one evening, watching from a distance as Kalen and Veolyra spoke in low voices, their proximity effortless, unguarded. He didn't notice her. Not this time. And that was the moment everything ended. Not when he chose. Not when Veolyra returned. But now, when she finally stopped hoping, she didn't plan it. Not in detail. Not in the way people expect when someone leaves. There was no map. No destination waiting. Just a decision that had already been made. By the time the estate fell quiet that night, Illyra knew she wouldn't be there by morning. Eric slept in her arms, his breathing soft, steady, unaware of the shift that was about to change everything. She held him a little closer. Not tightly. Just enough to remind herself why she wasn't hesitating. The room around her felt unfamiliar. Not because it had changed, but because she finally had. Illyra moved quietly. gathering only what mattered. Clothes. A few personal things. Nothing more. She didn't take anything that tied her to the life she was leaving behind, because that wasn't hers anymore. It never truly had been. She paused once, at the doorway, her gaze drifting across the room, over the space she had filled for years with patience, with silence, with something that had never been returned the same way. There was no anger, no bitterness, just clarity. She had stayed as long as she could, longer than she should have. That was enough. Eric stirred slightly, his small hand tightening against her as if sensing the change. "I'm here," she whispered. The words weren't for the house, or the past, just for him. Then, she left. No note, no explanation, because there was nothing left to explain. He had already been given every chance to see her, to choose her, to stay. He hadn't. The doors closed quietly behind her. No one stopped her. No one noticed. And that, somehow, made it easier. Because leaving didn't feel like running. It felt like finally stepping out of something that had already ended. Illyra didn't look back. Not once. The silence came first. Not dramatic. Not sudden. Just wrong. Kaelin noticed it before anything else. The estate felt different. Lighter in the wrong way. Like something essential had been removed without permission. He stood in the hallway, listening. No soft footsteps. No distant movement. No familiar presence moving through the space he had stopped noticing properly. At first, he dismissed it. She was likely resting. With Eric's. But the feeling didn't leave. It followed him. He walked to her chambers. Empty. Still. Undisturbed. Too undisturbed. "Where is she?" he asked a passing guard. The man hesitated. That hesitation was the first crack. "She hasn't been seen since last night, my alpha." Kaelin frowned. "That's not an answer." The guard lowered his gaze. "She left." The word didn't land immediately. It floated, unprocessed. Then, it sank. Kaelin didn't move. For a moment, nothing in him responded. Then, left where? The guard hesitated again. "I don't know, my alpha." A pause. Longer this time. Then Kaelin turned sharply. Eric's room. Empty. No toys moved. No signs of chaos. No life interrupted mid-action. Just absence. Cold. Clean. His chest tightened. Not pain. Not yet. Confusion first. Because she hadn't confronted him. Hadn't argued. Hadn't fought. That didn't make sense. "Illyra," he called once through the corridor. No answer. Only silence returned. And then, for the first time, he felt it. Not anger. Not authority. Wes. It came slowly at first, like something trying to find its place in a body that refused to accept it. Then all at once. Heavy. Real. Unavoidable. She was gone. And he hadn't even seen her leave. At first, Kaelin told himself it didn't matter. She would return. She had always stayed before. Always endured. Always been there when he expected her to be. That was who she was. But days passed. Then more. And the silence didn't change. It deepened. The estate felt wrong. Not empty in the way a place without people felt. Empty in the way something essential was missing. Something he had never thought to define. Until now. Kaelin moved through the halls like he always had. Same routine. Same authority. Same control. But nothing responded the same way. Meals appeared, but lacked warmth. Rooms were prepared, but felt untouched. Even the air felt colder. He noticed things he had never paid attention to before. The absence of quiet footsteps behind him. The lack of a voice that never demanded to be heard. The stillness of spaces that used to feel lived in. And then, Eric's laughter. Or rather, the absence of it. That was what unsettled him the most. He paused outside the empty room longer than he should have, looking at nothing, seeing everything he had ignored. A small toy left in the corner, a blanket folded too neatly. No signs of chaos, no signs of life, just stillness. Kalen exhaled slowly. Something in his chest tightened again, stronger this time. He turned away and found Veilira waiting in the hallway. She smiled softly. Familiar. Expected. Still thinking about her? She asked. The question was light, almost amused. Kalen didn't answer immediately, because for the first time, he didn't know how to. It wasn't her he was thinking about. Not entirely. It was the space she had filled, the things she had done without asking, without demanding recognition, without ever making him notice. Until now. Illyra left, he said finally. Veilira's expression didn't change. She'll come back. Kalen didn't respond, because something told him she wouldn't. And that was the first moment he understood. This wasn't temporary. Illyra didn't rush. There was no urgency in the way she built her new life. No desperation. Just quiet intention. The place she chose wasn't remarkable. No towering estate. No display of power. Just a small home at the edge of a quiet territory where no one knew her name. Where no one expected anything from her. For the first time, that felt like freedom. Eric's adjusted faster than she had expected. Children always did. His laughter returned first. Soft at the beginning. Uncertain. Then louder. Freer. Like something inside him had finally been given space to breathe. Illyra noticed the difference immediately. The way he moved without hesitation. The way he spoke without glancing over his shoulder. The way he reached for her without fear of being ignored. It settled something deep inside her. A quiet reassurance that she had done the right thing, even on the days it still hurt. Because it did. Not sharply anymore. Not like before. But in small, quiet ways. Moments where memory slipped in without warning. A glance. A thought. A name she didn't speak out loud. But it didn't consume her. Not anymore. She filled her days with simple things. Work. Routine. Presence. Things that didn't demand more than she could give. Things that didn't leave her waiting. At night, when the world settled into stillness, she sometimes stood outside beneath the open sky, letting the quiet wrap around her. No expectations. No tension. No unspoken weight pressing against her chest. Just space. To exist. To breathe. To be. She didn't think about going back. Didn't wonder if he would come looking. Because that part of her, the part that had waited, was gone. Not broken. Not lost. Just finished. And in its place. Something steadier had begun to grow. The estate no longer felt like his. That was the first truth Kalen couldn't ignore. Nothing had changed. The halls were the same. The structure untouched. The power still his. And yet, everything felt empty. Not in a way he could command away. Not in a way authority could fix. Just absence. Persistent. Unyielding. Kalen stood in the doorway of what had once been her room. He hadn't entered it since she left. Not fully. Not until now. Inside, everything was as it had been. Ordered. Quiet. No signs of struggle. No trace of hesitation. Just a life removed. He stepped in slowly, as if crossing into something he didn't have the right to disturb. And for the first time, he noticed. Not the obvious things. The small ones. The details he had never thought to see. The way everything had been placed with intention. The quiet care woven into a space he had taken for granted. The presence that had once filled it, without ever demanding acknowledgement. His chest tightened, stronger than before. Not confusion this time. Not disbelief. Understanding. Late. Too late. He turned slightly, his gaze drifting toward the empty doorway. And for a brief moment, he expected her to be there, waiting, like she always had been. But the space remained empty, because she wasn't waiting anymore. She had left. And this time, she wasn't coming back. Kaylin exhaled slowly, the weight of it settling deeper with every second. He had chosen what he thought he wanted. Power, familiarity, the past he had never released. And in doing so, he had let go of something he never thought to measure. Something steady, something real, something that had been there all along, until it wasn't. He lowered his gaze, because the truth no longer left room for anything else. He hadn't lost her in a moment. He had lost her slowly, every time he didn't choose her. And now, there was nothing left to choose.